Alright, hey guys, I am finally going to redo the Minecraft test on the base model M2 MacBook Air. The first test I did, I had the FPS limited to 60, mainly because I was worried that this thing is fanless and I don't know how hot it was going to get, especially if I kept playing for long periods of time. But a lot of people asked that I did, or at least redo this video with the Uncapped FPS. So I'm going to redo this video for you guys, as I think it would be fair, and also to see how this thing performs when it's not limited on the power. Okay guys, here I am booted into the game. Let's check the video settings. First, I'm going to just run on the full resolution, and then we'll just mess around with some settings later. Graphics fancy, render distance, maybe we'll try 20. Max frame rate, we'll have this uncapped, and maybe even turn VSync off. So these are the settings I am running with here. And I'm just gonna make a new world, I guess. So here we are. This is with the F3 stats currently. This is the resolution I'm running at. And you can see this is the base model M2. Turn this down a little bit. Currently around 60 something FPS where I'm at. Can range anywhere while the chunks are still loading, but it's hovering around 60 to 70 FPS. Can sometimes drop to around 50 something when chunks and the render distance is still loading. But definitely, compared to what I remember when I had this at capped 60 frames per second, it said I was getting a solid 60 frames per second, but it was a little bit choppy. It never really felt like 60 FPS, but it felt more like 20 something to 30 FPS. But running on uncapped FPS like I am right now, it's definitely a lot smoother. Like, I don't feel any real choppiness compared to when I had this thing capped. Though even right now, it's not perfectly smooth, but it's definitely a lot smoother than it was before. Remember, I still have the render distance set pretty high. What if we even go 32 chunks just to try it, right? Now, the reason why I held off, well, part of the reason why I held off was, do people even still want to see this video? Because this is still just a base model M2 Air, and now they have the M3s and now the M4s out and stuff like that. But apparently people are still watching that original video I put out, so I thought I'd just redo this video in case anybody still wants to see how the M2 runs, or they are maybe thinking of picking up a older MacBook Air, especially since you can get the older ones on discount. But here we go. This is 32 chunks, and it's honestly not that bad. Now, it's not perfectly smooth, as you would expect. Chunks are still loading. Even on 32 render distance, it's not that bad, considering that this thing is fanless. It's definitely more choppy than when I wasn't running it at 32. Now, would I play at 32? Most likely not. It's not the smoothest experience. What are we getting here? Now, I don't have an FPS counter, unfortunately, but so I do have to pull up the F3 every time. But it says we are still getting close to around 60. 48 right there. So you can see the FPS is kind of just ranging from like high 40s to the low 60s. But it does not feel that way. Again, it does feel a little bit choppy. Definitely a little bit choppy. Like the frame rate is not smooth. Well, what if we try 23 chunks? Yeah, even when you drop it down to 23 chunks, it is considerably smoother, and 23 chunks is still plenty. 133 FPS. One thing to mention is that when I do pull up these F3 stats, the FPS does drop quite a bit. So whatever it says here is not actually what I would be getting if I didn't pull up the stats. But when I quickly pulled it up there for the instant, it said it was over 100 FPS. But still, it does not really feel like you're playing at over 100 FPS. It's definitely a little bit choppy still. Some stuttering here and there, but overall it is very, very smooth. Well, I guess now that we're heading here, maybe there's even more trees, but oh well. Let's just try looking at a different environment. Oh, there's actually a bunch of trees here. But, I mean, either way, the game is definitely playable, even on this base model M2 MacBook Air. My friend has a base model M1 Air, and he plays Minecraft just fine. I don't think you're going to have any problems playing with this. It's just going to be not the most smooth experience. It's kind of stuttery, even given the high FPS count. What if we drop to 15? And now, of course, this is also just the base vanilla game. If you run maybe some graphics optimizations, you can definitely get the game to run a lot smoother. Maybe do some optimization in the graphics settings and whatnot. This is just the base game here. But yeah, when I dropped it now, the render distance to 15, it's just a little smoother. It kind of just feels the exact same as if I was at 20 something, honestly. Like 90% of it is very smooth, but then you're just going to get them a little bit of stuttering here and there for whatever reason. Now, I have not tried shaders on this MacBook Air, but on my M1 Pro, I do run the, what was it, Iris? And then I also have the BSL shaders, I believe they're called. And even with that, with some tinkering, I can play it at a pretty solid FPS. And it's definitely very playable. So you just have to do some tinkering, especially if you want to run this game with some shaders. Alright, so I guess now we're going to I'm going to feel around the laptop, see how hot it's been getting. Especially at the top here. But you know what? It's hot. This is the most hot area to the touch. The keyboard is not hot. The top of the keyboard around here, the F keys are a little bit warm, but where you're going to rest the WASD, they are perfectly fine. It's a little bit warm, only slightly, but everything else is cold to the touch. I mean, the trackpad and around the palm areas, they are cold still, but it's actually not that bad, considering that we're running on uncapped frames. It's not like outrageously hot or anything. I don't think you need to run this uncapped FPS if you don't want to, if you want that little bit smoother experience, because it doesn't seem to be getting that hot, honestly. I thought this thing would be burning, but it's not. Even feeling under the Mac right now, it's just slightly warm to the touch. I imagine if you start running shaders and stuff, it's going to get quite hot pretty fast. Without shaders, this thing runs like a boss. Alright, so that's my redo of Minecraft on the base model M2 MacBook Air. If you guys have any other things you want me to test, maybe I'll test it in the future if I get the time. Maybe I'll run shaders or something on here just to give it a try, kind of like what I did with my M1 MacBook Pro. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys all in the next one.